So it finally happened to me. I recorded like a 40 something minute video only to find that maybe after a quarter of the way, the audio was not there. My microphone had died. I didn't notice. So, yeah, but that's okay. I'm using the other microphone. I'm keeping an eye on the light, and I'm honestly just going to try this again one more time. And if it doesn't work out today, I am doing this on Thursday. So, today I have a June wrap up as well as a July TBR. There are two books that are kind of oddballs in the bunch because I started them in 1 month and they're going to be bleeding into the next month or so. So, honestly, to get started before the audio possibly goes away again, the first book that I read for June is called The Fib by Pedro Iniguez. And I hope I'm saying his last name right. So, I've read Pedro's work before. I've read Mexicans on the Moon as well as Echoes and Embers. So, I know him as like a horror author. So, it was really interesting to read a picture book by him, and I believe the illustrations are done by Nathan Kwan. This was a really cute book about how a lie can snowball out of your control and how the truth will honestly just set you free. So, this was a really cute book to read for the first day of June. So, with the next book that I read it with the same group that I read What Fell from the Sky by Adriana Cuevas. It was the same group that I read this next book, and that is Onder and Santi Were Here by Johnny Carzavia. So, when I first read this book, I realized that I was saying the first character's name wrong. I'm pretty sure I know I said Ander and Santi were here, but I'm pretty sure in the first chapter when the character was explaining their identity and how their name is pronounced, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Onder, like Onder, not like Ander, like it's Onder. So that was my mistake. I had no idea, and I'm pretty sure that's how the name was spelled because when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, I've definitely been pronouncing the name incorrectly. That is my bad." I won't go too long about this book only because I wrote a pretty long review for it and I posted it over on my book Instagram. So what I will say about it right now is I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars, and it was just such an amazing, deep, thought-provoking, emotional, heartwarming, heart-wrenching book, and it's honestly one of my favorite books of June, as well as my favorite books of 2026. The next book that I read in June is called Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. So I've only read one Grady Hendrix book before. I read My Best Friend's Exorcism, I think either back in early 2022 or early 2023. I remember exactly when I was reading this book because there was an event going on when I was reading it. I was like reading it in the car on the way to this event and I stopped because I was getting nauseous. But I can't remember if it was 2022 or 2023, but it was one of those. But I saw Horror Store absolutely everywhere on book Instagram. And I am very frequently behind reading popular books and popular authors. So I was pretty excited to get to Horror Store when I got it over on Libby. There was one character where I thought they were kind of like a tight ass about things, but then we got to know more about who they were, and they ended up becoming one of my favorite characters. And what kind of made me change my opinion about them, like aside from learning the backstory, was they had like written employee reviews for some people, and these employee reviews were like the most kindest reports I have ever read. They were like, oh, this person has been working here for so many years. They're very friendly. Customers love them, but they've been working here for like this many years. They have never gotten a raise. I think we need to give them this amount of a raise to make up for like all of those years they didn't. We need to continue to keep our employees happy so that way they stay here with us. And then for like another character, they were like, this character has potential. And I think with the right leadership and the right like direction, they could become management and they can continue to keep moving up in like the chain or whatever. So these were like the nicest reports ever. And then after learning the backstory and seeing how they were actually like super nice, you kind of see like, oh, that's why they care so much about working here. This is why they care so much about the employees doing well. So that was a really sweet character that I ended up loving because at first I was like, oh my God, like you work at a furniture store, like you can relax a little bit. But then we learned more about them and I was like, oh, that's actually really sweet. So this was a really fun read. I loved seeing the mystery behind what was going on with the store. So that was really cool. And just overall, I'm really happy that I finally got to a popular book that I have seen all over Bookstagram and all over BookTube. Also, I'm sorry if I keep like diverting my eyes like this way. I'm trying to make sure that the light is still on, and I'm pretty sure it is because I don't think I can handle it again if the audio is lost. So, my bad. I'll try not to like check, but if you see my eyes diverting, that's where I'm going. Another book that I read in June is called The Revolution of Bertie Randolph by Brandy Colbert. I also won't say too much about this book either because I also wrote a review for it over on my Bookstagram. What I will say is this was also a 5 out of 5 star read for me. All of the young adult books that I've read so far have been like hitting it out of the park, so that's really cool. And something about this book, when I was reading, I found myself often pausing, reflecting, and asking myself, what would I do? Because there were different scenarios in here where I feel like maybe if you're not a parent, you kind of don't know what it would feel like to be in that kind of situation. I'm not a parent. So when I would pause and reflect on what I would do, I would like go to my husband, give him the scenario, and then I would be like, okay, what would you do? Because this is what I would do. But in the book, these parents are like doing this like third other thing that I don't think we're thinking about. So this was just a really thought provoking book. There was like teen drinking, teen smoking, addiction, alcoholism, mending strained family relationships. So this book had a lot going on. And the drama in here honestly kept me hooked the whole way. This is definitely a favorite of June as well, and definitely of 2026. The very last book that I read for June is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I have seen everybody talk about The Only Good Indians. I have seen everybody talk about Stephen Graham Jones. This book is only my second book reading this author, so I am totally behind. So when I was reading this book, I I can't explain it. Uh, when I was starting like each section, because there's like four different sections in here, when I would start reading the section, I often found myself feeling very confused as to what was happening. And what was weird was like maybe a quarter, maybe 50% of the way through of that section, it was like a light switch would go off and I would be like, yes, I understand completely what is going on. I know what's being said. I know what actions are being done. I know everything. But then when I would start the next section, I would feel confused and then the light switch would go off again. So I don't really know what was going on with me when I was reading this book. I did enjoy it. I have no idea why I felt so confused. Maybe it's a skill issue. I don't know. I did enjoy it. I just felt so bad for a lot of the characters in here, and I am glad that I have finally read another Stephen Graham Jones book. So, moving on to my July TBR, there's a couple of things going on with July, including like those two oddball books that I mentioned. So, I'll just get started. One of the books that I want to read for July is called Plagueland by S.D. Sykes. I believe I'm saying that correctly. So, this book, every time I think about unhauling a few books from my shelves, I always begin to pull out this one because I have had this book, no joke, since 2017. I bought this book when I was in school and there was like a book sale going on. I don't know if it was like a library sale or a book sale or something, but I saw this book, I bought it, and I have never read it. It's been almost 10 years, and that's why every time I think about unhauling books, I look at this one and I'm about to unhaul it because I'm like, okay, I've had it for 10 years, almost 10 years. I've had so many chances to just pick this up and I don't, I should just get rid of it. But the reason I don't is because every time I pick up the book, I read the back, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep it because this sounds so cool. But then I do that every single time. And here we are almost 10 years later and it's still on my shelves. So to read the back, Kent 1350. The Black Death has changed the land forever, taking master and servant alike. Young Oswald de Lacy was never meant to be lord of Somers Hill Manor, but with his father and brothers killed by the plague, he must return from the monastery and take charge of the estate. Immediately, Oswald is confronted with the vicious murder of a young woman, Alison Starvecrow. The village priest claims it is the work of demonic dog-headed men. Oswald knows this is nonsense, but to prove it, He must find the real killer. In a maze of political intrigue, family secrets, and violent strife, and then the body of another girl is found. And that is the reason why every time I think about unhauling this book, I read the back and then I'm like, you know what? Never mind. I will get to this eventually. And eventually is now here in July 2026. I am finally going to read this book. And I swear to myself, if I don't read this in July, I am just going to unhaul it because it is not fair for this to be living on my shelves for so long and to go this long being unread. The next book on my TBR is Please Don't Go by Salvador. So I also want to say thank you so much to Atria, Primero Sueño Press, for sending me this book. I saw this book absolutely everywhere on Bookstagram, and I really was so excited when I got this on my doorstep. So thank you once again. And to read the back, Josefine Resendez is trying to survive the weight of grief while pretending her life hasn't come to a complete standstill. She doesn't know how to name what she's feeling or how to fix what feels broken inside her. All she knows is that staying afloat is getting harder by the day. Daniel Garcia looks like he has everything going for him. A gifted shortstop with a future everyone believes in, he carries himself with easy charm and quiet confidence. What no one sees is the guilt and loss he's been carrying since his brother's death. Grief he's learned to hide behind smiles and discipline. That is until he stumbles upon Josephine on Christmas Day, by chance and at the wrong time, in a moment that was never meant to last. But some connections refuse to disappear. When their paths keep crossing, forgetting each other becomes impossible. Feelings surface, defenses falter. Being together starts to feel like relief. As they grow closer, they are forced to face the question neither of them is ready to answer. What happens when love arrives before healing does? And letting go feels just as terrifying as holding on. So, I've mentioned quite a few times that I have been really enjoying stories about like grief as well as grief horror. And I also don't really read sports romances. So, to see the two kind of just mesh together in this book, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different themes in here that make it amazing. I am just so excited to read this book finally. And again, thank you to Primero Sueño Press for sending me this book. This is also a pretty chunky book. I'm pretty sure this is in like the 500-page mark, I think. So this is definitely going to require a lot of my time, love, and attention. And I'm just so excited to read this book. So another book from my physical TBR that I want to get to next month is Oh My God by Jenna Showalter. So when I bought The Revolution of Bertie Randolph, that was at a Dollar Tree. And I'm like 90% sure that when I bought The Revolution of Bertie Randolph, I also bought this one. If not, it was definitely around the same time as each other because I was going to Dollar Tree like a lot to look at what books they had. And this was from Dollar Tree. And I'm really excited to get to this book and to read the back to show you why. Years ago, a tragic accident robbed me of my mother and emotions. Because I find beauty in darkness and thrive outside social norms, I've been labeled a freak at school. I know my continued apathy hurts my loved ones, but I'm not about to change. Nothing will ever hurt me again. Then I wake up in an alternate reality and everything else has changed. Goth is in, I'm considered cool, and my archenemy, the formerly popular Mercedes, is the freak. But my real friends won't talk to me, and the new boy is getting under my skin. As my world spins out of control, I'm desperate to return to normal. But the more time that passes, the less I'm sure what normal really is. I'm just so excited to get to this book. Honestly, I picked it out because of the title and honestly, the cover. This kind of feels like, if not Tumblr, this feels very MySpace. Like I can see this picture surrounded by like neon lights and maybe like the emo Hello Kitty. Do you know what I mean? Because that was like what was on my MySpace in those days, and that was what was on other people's MySpace pages. I remember I knew how to like code, or I think that's what it was. I knew how to like customize my MySpace profile to my liking, and this for some reason just kind of screams MySpace to me. So honestly, that's one of the main reasons why I'm super excited to get to this book. And I wonder if after I finish, if this would have been a book that I would have absolutely loved when I was in like middle school. So I am really excited to get to Oh My Goth. The ebook that I want to read in July is The House Switch 3 by Hack. So I mentioned this in my series progress video. I am reading the House Switch series, but for some reason, the House Switch 3 is just not on Libby. It is in the form of an audiobook, but I don't gravitate towards audiobooks because I get too distracted. But they just never have like an ebook for this book. I got curious yesterday. I went on my Libby initially to check, but then I saw that I had two notices. One of them was like for something else that I can't remember. And the second notice mentioned the House Witch 3, but I thought it was just going to be in the audiobook form because that's all that there was. But when I clicked it, it took me to the ebook. So I just thought that was such a funny coincidence that I talked about it. I mentioned how it was not in the ebook version for me, but then it showed up as an ebook version for me. So I am just so excited to get to this book. And I feel like I have to get to this book soon because I am pretty sure the House Switch 1 and 2, I think, they're in like the 400-page mark. And for the House Switch 3, I got this yesterday. So now I have like 20 days to read it. And I feel like for some reason on Libby time, like those days just fly by. I am definitely going to buy the physical copies of book 2 and book 3. I am so excited to get to The House Switch 3 by Hack. On to the two oddball books that are bleeding from one month into the next. The first book that I have is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. So I finally started this book on Sunday, June 28th. I read a little bit more of it yesterday. I got to page 148. So I don't think I'm going to read that huge chunk by today because today is Tuesday, June 30th. I'm not going to read like the rest of that today. That's kind of a lot. And I still have like other things to do. So this is definitely going to be a book that I finish in July. So I don't know how long this will take me to read. I finished all of like book one because I think there's like three books in here, like three sections. So I don't know when I'll get to the other two. I am going to try and read it every day. I don't think I'm going to get through so many pages like I did on Sunday and yesterday. But that's what I mean when I say like this book is it began in June and it's definitely going to end in July. And I definitely am enjoying the story so far. I just feel so bad for one character. Like I feel so bad for her and I'm really interested in reading the tension between Japan and Korea. That was something I don't really know anything about. So I really love that I'm learning something when I read this book. So far, I'm enjoying it. I am also not expecting to finish it today. I don't know when in July, but definitely I hope to finish this in like maximum a week or so. The last oddball book that I have, and I'm pretty sure this will end up on like my July wrap up, that is Scream With Me by Eleanor Johnson. I started this book, no joke, like mid May. I'm pretty sure I started this on May 17th. I had it on Libby. I was reading it a little bit every day, every other day or so, but then the Libby hold got taken away, obviously, and my husband treated me to the physical book. I've been reading this so slowly. I am really enjoying it. I love it actually, but I just wanted to read this slowly because I didn't want to feel like I was rushing through it. I really wanted to take my time reading it because I love horror movies and there's a lot of movies in here that are mentioned that I also didn't know were books. I don't think I knew Rosemary's Baby was a book. I knew The Exorcist was a book, but I just haven't read either of those. I have never seen Rosemary's Baby. I have definitely seen The Exorcist. And a movie that is mentioned in here is The Omen. That is one of my favorite horror movies ever. And it was one of my favorite horror movies when I was a kid because my parents weren't really monitoring what I was watching. So I am just really enjoying reading this book and how Eleanor Johnson is tying in contents of the book, the movie, to feminism and the different laws that were going on in the United States. And I love that she mentions like the different events and incidences that were happening in like New York and elsewhere in the country. So I have been absolutely enjoying this book. I just don't think I'll finish it today. I only have maybe 100 pages because at the end it's like the notes or something. Like I don't think I'll read the notes, but I have more or less 100 pages, but I just don't think I'll read it today. Part of me kind of doesn't want to because I just kind of want to make sure that I'm not like rushing through it today. So I feel like this is going to get done in July. So you might see this in a July wrap up video. Oh, and I know the Stepford Wives was in here, and I've seen that movie, but I've only seen the version with Nicole Kidman, Bette Midler, and that one guy whose name is escaping me, but he played Ferris Bueller. His name was going to come to me in like the dead of night, but it's that version that I saw of the Stepford Wives. And I also didn't know that that was also a book. So I feel like once I finish reading Scream with Me, I am definitely going to want to read all of the books that are mentioned here and also see the movies. I've never seen Rosemary's Baby. I haven't seen the original version of The Stepford Wives. I've never seen Alien, and I haven't seen Creep that's mentioned in here. So I feel like after this book, I am going to obtain a lot of knowledge, and I am also going to have an even longer list of books and movies that I want to see. So July has a lot of different genres, so that's something I'm really excited about because we have Plagueland, which has the Black Death, murder, mystery, political intrigue, and then we have oh my god. So that's going to be such a fun month and I'm really excited to see like how much I read and just see how my reading month for July goes when it comes to like the end of the month. I'm pretty sure that is everything that I had. I am still checking that the light is on and it is, so that's good. So I would love to know what your favorite book from June was, or what your July TBR is looking like, or maybe what your favorite book is so far for 2026. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope that I see you next time.